Greetings, I hope everybody's doing all right. This is Coach Fleischer, and we're going to be talking about positive and negative phasing for multi-joint exercises. In the last video, we talked about positive and negative phasing for single joint exercises, and it's really simple to see concentric, eccentric, contract, relax, positive, negative. It gets a little bit to be a bit of a brain bender, if you will, when you get into multi-joint exercises, like what's concentric, what's eccentric, what's contracting, what's relaxing. Holy cow, what joint is flexing, what joint is extending? It becomes a little bit like overwhelming. And when you get into deeper level coursework in this subject, you can spend an entire week, in a class, in a higher level kinesiology class, talking about exercise movement patterns, evaluating phasing, and evaluating how a movement pattern looks when you break it down bit by bit by bit. For the sake of our class, please, we're not going that far. We're just going to be talking about phasing of exercise in multi-joint movement patterns for today. Last time when we talked single joint, we talked about positive and negative. It's going to be the same concept today, but you see it's a little bit different when we get into the multi-joint exercises. So we did this last time. We talked about concentric, eccentric, positive, and negative, and this is pretty straightforward with the bicep curl, right? And you have this concentric side where you're contracting, and eccentric side where you're elongating the muscle. And in this example, it's elbow flexion, elbow extension. I'm not going to bump out to the video on this one. You can go ahead and refer back to it. But when you get into a multi-joint exercise, and you've seen this one before as well, we know the elbow moves when you do this multi-joint exercise, that being a narrow grip lat pull down. So it is difficult to look at this sometimes to go, okay, on this narrow grip lat pull down, as I'm pulling down, the elbow is closing, so that's elbow flexion. The bicep is contracting, but the tricep is elongating. Okay, cool, got it. Sometimes it's just easier when you look at a video, and see if I can kick us out to it here. You can just look at it and go, dramatic pause, positive, negative, positive, negative, right? Because as you're doing this narrow grip lat pull down, you do have concentric, eccentric on the back of the arms, and then that phasing switches back and forth, right? Concentric, eccentric, for the biceps, concentric, eccentric, and that replays itself over and over and over again. Positive, negative, positive, negative. And again, like I said, it can be a brain bender, but you start to evaluate exercise and it becomes easier to figure that out. So, in this example, the positive phase would be when pulling the handle down. The negative phase is when you're allowing the handle to return to the top position. This changes a little bit when you do different exercises in terms of pulling, pushing, squatting, lifting, throwing, etc. But again, it's the same rules apply, right? When you are contracting in the concentric phase for the main muscle group you're trying to work, in this case the lats, that would be your positive phase. When you're working eccentrically, it's the negative phase. So interestingly enough, when you talk exercise, and it's just how our muscle is made, muscle is stronger in that eccentric loading phase. So you can have some fun with doing some different types of loading parameters where you might have some, say a bicep curl where somebody helps you curl the bar up, but the person who's performing the exercise works freely on the way down in a slower manner. So it's maybe a 1 count up and a 1, 2, 3, 4 count down. And it's just a matter of how they're called cross-bridge attachments in the muscle, how the muscle actually interacts and contracts. You have what are called cross bridges, and that is in an eccentric phasing. You're actually using those cross bridges and those attachments to help hold the muscle fiber together, and you're working against that process eccentrically, and the actual muscle fiber itself is stronger in that phase. So you can play around with doing negative push-ups. You're in a push-up position, you're fully extended, you drop down 1, 2, 3, 4, pop yourself right back up, down 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can change the amount of time under tension in either of the phases as well. Play around with it as you're doing your exercises, whether it's squats, push-ups, etc. Play around with the phasing on this and get an idea of your positive and negative phasing in different exercises and change your tempo depending which phase you're in. You'll like it, I guarantee it. Have a good one, guys.